Okay. Reverend Kinloch say he's dialing in right now. That's our guest. This is Adolph Mongo. Allan Lengel. What is this? Me and you, man?
Just back, just like Clinton Junior High.
Is this Mr. Hardesty class? You remember Mr. Hardesty?
Hardesty. I'm trying to remember.
He was our homeroom teacher.
Okay,
He was a stout guy. Wait a minute, and he was nobody you fuck with and shit.
Right.
But I remember, I remember Kenny Ways. Remember Kenny Ways?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
We was in homeroom. Me and Kenny Ways, we was the only black students in homeroom, and his father came in. It was like what 7:30 or 8 o'clock in the morning, and everybody looked to see. They know it was one of our fathers, either me or Kenny. And Kenny father just got off work. I found out later he worked over at the Mayoral plant downtown, and he was kind of inebriated.
Mm-hmm.
He came there. He had a brown paper bag. He said, "Kenny, you forgot your lunch." And he got up. And you know, Mr. Hardest, he never said a word.
That's so funny. I love the story when we were in the class and we had to do a poem or something like that, a commercial. Maybe a commercial, and you did the what's the price?
Thunderbird wine.
Right. It was a Thunderbird.
Wait a minute. We had to write an ad and stuff, and I went into a party store in Royal Oak Township, and I saw what they had. I said I wrote it all down. I came and I said, "What's the word, Thunderbird? What's the price? 99 twice. How's it sold? Good and cold. So get the word and get Thunderbird." And the teacher said, "You need to send that to them." I said, "Yeah, right." I said, "Because you're not gonna do the shit."
She loved it.
Some nasty ass wine.
The other thing I remember, I was just talking about this the other day with somebody. You and I were in a class with Mrs. I think Goldsmith, and they were showing a film about. It was supposed to be an experiment to show how the people just were following orders, and it was a fake experiment, but there was somebody on one side, and they were supposed to be administering every time the person said something wrong or something, administering a shock to the person on the other side of the wall. And the person on the other side of the wall said, no, don't. I have a heart condition. And the person next to it said, don't worry about it. Just keep giving him shocks. And the person would scream like he was actually getting a shock. And you and I were laughing. And the teacher was screaming at us saying it's not funny. But anyways.
Right, no question. So we got folks coming. Queen B appears that the notification might not have gone out. Edward A, good evening, Detroit. Karen Winston, hello, good people. Miss Sheila, okay. I model, okay. Yes, well, thanks for everybody. We supposed to have, the Reverend Solomon Kinloch. He said he was dialing in, so we'll wait for him to come. But did you watch the? It wasn't a debate, or what was it? Shit show?
It was funny. They billed it as a debate, and then they said, "Well, it's not going to be a debate because there's not going to be like opening statements, and there's not going to be whatever closing statements and stuff like that." It was uneven, I think, in the kind way. I don't know that I got anything out of it. I don't know that I didn't get a great feeling from the whole thing, but I think sometimes debates are messy. We've seen in the presidential debates, particularly, both Republican and Democrat, where we've seen kind of it's sloppy or messy or somebody. So I don't know. I didn't get a lot out of it. I really watched it because I thought it would be entertaining with Charlie running it. I think he tried to uh, run it, but run it as a show, the Charlie show. But I don't.
Well, a
Yeah,
shit show.
I got a lot. Yeah, I don't know that I got a lot out of it in terms of saying, "Oh my gosh, this person is really knows his stuff" or whatever. Everyone was well spoken.
My problem, and we supposed to have Santil Jenkins tomorrow. I'm sure she's gonna show up. I think we got Reverend
Hey,
Solomon
that's the
Kinloch.
Reverend.
Hello, hello everyone. How you
Hello.
doing, Allan? And
Hey,
All praises to Reverend Solomon Kinloch. You know what? Listen, man, you were smart not to go to that fiasco last night. You know, because I don't think you would have answered if somebody said, "Well, if you wasn't running, Reverend Kinloch, who would you vote for?" I, Vote for yourself.
yeah.
That's why you're running. All right.
One of the things that we got to be conscious of and cautious is remembering who we represent. We represent the people in the city of Detroit, the residents. And at all times, we want to make sure that we are acting and conducting ourselves in a way and communicating our message in a way where uh, we are living up to the expectation and exceeding those expectations with dignity and respect. And last night was not a demonstration of that.
did you
Well,
watch it?
you know, people say you should have showed up and you should have let people hear what you got to say. What you say on that?
Well, I've been showing up for the last 27 years, and I am not a traditional and institutional politician. I came into it because I am different, and I want to be different, and I believe that the residents and the citizens of Detroit deserve something different. We have something that we have never had. 45 days before the primary, people are able to vote early. That's new, and so we have to adjust to that process differently. And then we got to look at the fact that 80%, many times 70 to 80% of the electorate is not even engaged. The silent majority is not even engaged in the democratic process. It's because nobody's talking to them. So many times traditional politics is perceived as we have to just talk to people who believe they've been anointed and appointed to talk on behalf of people. I came into this knowing that we ought to approach it differently, and we ought to use this opportunity to talk directly to the voters. So that's what I'm doing. I'm knocking every block, and inviting all people to knock every block with me. I just came. The reason I jumped on late is because I came from another house gathering. We have almost 100 gatherings with seniors and with homes and businesses. And we are also tomorrow inviting hundreds and thousands of volunteers to continue to sign up and go knock blocks with us on a daily basis. I believe that this race is going to be won in the street, and I believe that all of us should be trying to talk to every voter. You only get a vote when you ask people for their vote.
Allan.
Reverend, I have a question. What made you suddenly decide I need to run for mayor? The city needs me to do what? What was the motivation for deciding to run?
I must admit, I was waiting on someone to stand up that I believe would have the courage for the times in which we live. We have a tremendous foundation, but Detroit is at a crossroad. We need not only competency, but we also need courage. We need someone who's going to be at the table and be a unifier and not a divider. How do we bring corporate, philanthropic, and business together? We need someone at the table that is going to ensure that while we're talking with our corporate and philanthropic allies, that we make sure that people are still the highest concern on the agenda. And you've been around here so many times. There are people who will come in and incite a fight just so that they can personally benefit from the fight. I didn't see anyone that I believe would possess that type of courage for what is going to demand and what is going to take for the season in which we're getting ready to face. And so, listening to the concerns of the people, that most people have lost faith in institutional politics, in politicians, I said, listen, we have a platform that we can use, that we've used to help other people. It's time to use this platform to make sure that we are helping our community as a whole.
Well, you got some people that's pissed off at you, Evan. You didn't
Hmm.
go over to. I didn't think it was a debate. I thought it was a clown show. And I'm not trying to clown the candidates. It's just the way it was set up. How did you decide to saying I'm a pass on that?
Well, in April, when the invitation was extended, because we knew we were approaching it different, there there are so many um, forms that we have already booked, housing and gatherings and things like that. And so one of the things that we did was we said, when we looked at it, let's balance, how do we get, we have the opportunity to take 150 people on the street, knock on doors, go to homes, seniors that were filling up our books, and we entertain one after another. And so we told them in April that I could not attend. I have the communication in which we said that. I'm not sure how that miscommunication uh, didn't get to them, but we knew early on. It was not a last minute denial. We knew early on we wouldn't be able to attend.
Alan.
I, one of the viewers here is asking. I guess maybe I'll sort of. The question is, do you plan, if you're elected mayor, do you plan on still running the church full time, part time, or stepping away completely? Have you figured out how that would look for you?
Well, Alan, the precedent has already been set. We already have enjoyed many ministers full time, um, ministers full time, um, um, back, whether we're talking about Keith Butler and others. We've had them um, get to a place and a space where um, they serve full time in municipal government, but also pastoring. I will be a full time mayor of the city of Detroit, undisputed. I will be a mayor 2.0. I will have people like we do now that run the day to day operations of the church. But on the weekend, as my calendar continues to make itself available, I will go to church. And if I'm there, I will preach. But I will be a full time mayor. There are people who can handle the day to day operations of the church. There will be no dichotomy or difference of my ability to be able to do the job full time.
Well, we done had Adam Clay Powell stayed
Yes.
20 years in Congress. We done had John Peoples, the Reverend John Peoples, spent 20 years on the city council. Warnock, the senator, Calvin Butts. I can name some. You know, listen, anybody that know how the black political
Yes.
organization started, where did it start at, Reverend Kinloch?
In the church, whether you're talking about Senator Raphael Warnock, who preaches at Ebenezer on the weekend, who flies to Washington during the week, whether you talk about, Floyd Flakes at Greater Allan, who was at Greater Allan, who served in United States Congress, whether you talk about Dwight Jones, who served 2 consecutive terms as mayor in Richmond, Virginia, and was the pastor of the church. And so one of the things we want to make sure is that we are not just uh, getting people to understand that we're doing what we want to do. We're doing what got to be done. At some point, we got to follow the words of Eddie Gall, the professor at Princeton, who wrote in his book, or the title of his book. He says, we have to become the type of leaders that we're looking for.
Okay.
Reverend,
We're gonna take a
break.
quick break, and we're gonna come back. with Reverend Kinloch, Solomon Kinloch. I want to say I was going to say Jonathan, but we're going to Solomon, and you know I'm gonna do a shout out to Jonathan. He become a Mason. You know
Yes, yes, yes.
that's
On
a big,
today.
that's a
Yes.
big deal. We're gonna take a break and we're gonna come back and continue our conversation with mayoral candidate Solomon Kinloch, Reverend Solomon Kinloch.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Eric Sabri, your Wayne County Treasurer. Are you living in the home of a deceased family member and you're facing property tax foreclosure, or maybe you know someone who's in the same situation? The probate process may be helpful to you. If you file a probate petition and notify our office, the foreclosure proceedings will be halted during the probate process. We have several nonprofit partners who have free attorneys who can assist you. Contact our office, 313-224-5990, or email us at taxinfo@waynecounty.com. Don't lose your family property. Some of these properties have been in the family for 4 or 5 generations. Contact us now. We're here to help.
Okay, Allan.
Reverend, some people argue about, separation of church and state. How does that look in your eyes of you being mayor, you being a reverend, having a church, and in terms of the separation of church and state? Do you see that as any issue, or have you thought that through in terms of how that would look?
Yeah, so one of the things I believe that the original architects of church and state understood that the church, in the words of Dr. Frederick Sampson, sagaciously suggested, who was the late pastor of the church here, Tabernacle Baptist Church. He said the church's address is a compilation of the city addresses. And so the church makes up the city. So when you start talking about church and state, I don't believe it was the original intent of the architects to keep the church out of the state's business. I believe it was to keep the state out of the church's business. While I believe that every person has a right to their own personal belief, I also believe that no one has the right to superimpose their personal beliefs on any person. And so, as mayor, there's no dichotomy for me. Just like I will fight to defend the personal preference of an individual, I will also fight to defend that everyone has a right to equal protection under the law, and everyone has a right to pursue happiness in his own individual way.
Well, you know what? I look at history in Detroit, and it was the ministers, and we look
Yes,
at Charles Hill, we look at
yes,
Reverend Clegg, we look at C.L. Franklin. They the one brought Martin Luther
Martin
King
King,
here,
yes,
because when those so-called black leaders in Detroit from the NAACP did not like Martin Luther King. They didn't
exactly.
want him
They
to
thought he was
march.
a troublemaker.
Yeah. So we done had the ministers doing what they've been doing. We got Reverend Wendell Anthony running the NAACP. Whether you like him or don't like him, he's been there and he made a difference. Listen, Coleman Young, when he was the mayor, he depended on the church. I think it's disingenuous that people say, "Oh man, you shouldn't run. You should do your church." I think the church has always been a part of the political process. So here we are. How can we make sure we can get our neighborhoods back together? And I'm gonna say this. I throw this out there. I think the mayor should be running the schools. The only way you're gonna bring back the neighborhoods is you're gonna have good education. So, what's your take on that?
Well, one of the things that, what I've been promoting and what I've been talking about is there are 5 pillars. Number one, we have to have a vision. We have a strong foundation, but we have to build a house now as we transition from a Duggan administration. We have to build a house that's inclusive for all Detroiters to live in. And so what does that mean? That means we have to create an environment for thriving neighborhoods. We have to create an environment for thriving families, not families just to survive, but thrive, where income is increased,
And
where
how do you do that?
where when we talk about thriving neighborhoods, one of the ways is we have to address, Allen, the income gap. When you look in a city where it's less than 40,000, and then in a region, it's almost double that. That means that wealth gap is getting wider and wider. That disparity is getting wider and wider. And so one of the ways that we can do that is by taking care of the employees that we already have, making sure that they are living and making comfortable wages. We can start there. The second thing that we do is we know that home ownership is the greatest pathway to wealth. Purchasing home, it increasing in value. That's a pathway to wealth. And so making sure that we double down and increase the down payment assistance, making sure that we give people access to the properties in the land banks for revitalization, challenging and issuing RFPs to local developers, small businesses to hire and renovate those homes and give tax credits for people who are staying in the homes who want to participate in the renovation and revitalization of this home. Workforce development is going to be essential. Training our workforce to be prepared for all of the development that's going on in the town, but also starting early in our schools and using our schools as a pipeline to prepare our young people for the baseline industries that are already here. And
Should the city run the schools?
well, I believe that's a question left to the voters. And Mongo, you've been around here long enough to know that has been one of those questions that the city residents continue to say no to, no to. But what I do think that the mayor has to do is to partner with the schools to say, what is it that we can do together in order to ensure that we operate under the urgency of the moment. You know, we need a vision, and that vision needs to be articulated to the children and to the parents. And we need to have metrics to make sure that we're going in the right direction. And if we're not going in the right direction, then we have to make some bold and some radical changes.
How do you see the city generating more revenues through? I mean, some people talk about putting a taxation maybe on ticket sales, or what do you see? Do you have any ideas about that?
Allan, one of the things during this political season, and that's what makes me different, because I'm not going to lie to the people of Detroit. We have to understand when we start talking about, you know, adding taxes for entertainment, we have to look at the fact that in many communities, and predominantly in our communities, there's some hesitation about going downtown anyway, um, because the option is parking is expensive and so many things are expensive. One of the things that we got to make sure that we take into consideration is the additional burden that we're putting on people when we start saying we're going to explore those things. And then when you start talking about sale tax, what stops us? How is that pro-business? What stops people from just going across 8 Mile and going into the suburbs in order to purchase their product? I do believe that we have to look at innovative ways. One of the ways that we can look at increasing income is jobs. We have to continue to invite people into our community. We have to continue to leverage our corporate relationships to get other people to want to come in here to do business. And one of the ways we do that is by administratively making it easier for people to do business in the city of Detroit. The other thing we can do is give credits to individuals for hiring people to do jobs in the city, and giving out incentives to make sure uh, that they not only work here, but they also live here. So if they work here, that's income tax. And if they live here, that's property tax. And so we have to continue to increase population. And we have to be intentional about that. And we have to be intentional about job creation.
Well, people say, why? You know what? You was living good out
Yes.
in Oakland County.
Yeah. Yeah.
You got all your church
Yes.
homes all
Yes.
over the place. Why did you move into the city and decided, you know what? This is the time is to run for mayor because people saying, "Oh, do you really live here, or
Yeah.
you just want to just run for mayor?"
Yeah, no, I'm a resident in the city, and Mongo and Allen, if they could kick me off the ballot, they would have. Uh, I've met the legal requirement to be in the city of Detroit, and so that's just a discussion that opponents want to have because they see that the train is moving and people are open to doing something fresh and different. The other reassuring thing that voters ought to look at is they're right. I don't have to do it, but I'm doing it because I feel it's necessary to make sure that we don't go back, that we have leadership that has integrity, leadership that will represent them with dignity, and leadership that does not have political aspirations to go to a higher office, to looking for another set and setup. I'm in this race because I want to make sure that government works good, not for just some people, for all people. That's my only intention, to ensure that when business is done, somebody is seated at that table that is going to make sure that the resident of the city is the highest priority on the agenda.
Reverend, could I just clarify? Last night I watched some of the debates, and
Yes.
we talked. Look, we've had a history of mayors, including Duggan, Dave Bing, who have moved back into the city to
Mm-hmm.
run for mayor, and as you've done. Last night, Charlie LaDuff kept saying he lives in his $1.5 million home in
Mm-hmm.
Oakland Township.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't even live in the city. I know Adolph has just asked you that. Are you fully moved in? Are you
Yes,
committed to this?
yes, and have been moved into the city. Yes, I own that property, and my wife and I own additional property other than that property. Yes, we live in downtown Detroit.
Okay.
Yeah, well,
Well, let me ask you, crime. What's people still
yeah.
talk about crime. I mean, it doesn't seem to be always at the tip of everyone's tongue, but it's in certain neighborhoods. Certainly, there's still gas stations that people don't feel safe, particularly at nighttime, filling up on gas. What's the plan there to try to make Detroiters feel safer about living like people in the suburbs live, where they
Yes,
can go any 10
yes,
o'clock, 11 o'clock at night? You can go on Woodward and Royal Oak and fill up your car and not
yes.
think twice.
You can't do that, Alan. But that's
Well,
a question.
but
I
but
would
but
say, where
Alan,
you
but
at?
Alan is
yeah.
hitting it right on the head. That people have education and safety is vital uh, for people to want to be in this city, and the continuity of those services. They want to know that with the transition of the Doug administration, that 911 calls are going to be answered. They want to know that crime and the decrease of crime and policing and safety is still going to be a priority. And one of the ways we will continue to do that is what my platform is built upon: encouraging individuals to make sure that we are hiring mental health professionals to make sure that when calls come in, those non-threatening 911 calls, we are sending out individuals who will make sure that they are providing mental assistance. The blessing we have is that we had a recent former chief, James White, who I'm proud to say is a member of Triumph Church and is also with the Wayne County Mental Health Authority, who is as chief of police. He was also a social worker, and is a social worker. And so we have resources there that can continue to partner the police department with those resources so we can bring crime down. But Alan, this overall crime fighter is jobs. When you attack poverty, you attack crime. And if we could bring the inequities down, we can bring crime down.
Now, what that you get elected day one? What's your first priority?
One of the things we would do is make sure by that time, once we get through the primary and how it looks, we will make sure that we have the right team around us. We need to make sure that we're not going backwards. We're going forward with the right, competent, uh, deputy mayor, chief operating officer, uh, chief financial officer. We want to make sure we have a chief compliance officer, someone that's different than the inspector general, because the inspector general works on the legislative side. We need somebody to make sure that they're working on the executive side to make sure that the day-to-day business of the mayor's office is operated with a level of integrity and that we're governed in a way that lives up to the dignity and expectations of the citizens.
How we get back the pensions that the bankruptcy just took away?
Well,
And people say, "Oh, Duggan did this, Duggan did that." It's like bankruptcy gave him a clean slate.
yeah.
Uh, gave it's like somebody looked at my credit report and say you don't owe nothing. And so now I'm getting all kind of credit cards offers and etc. And my credit is A1. What? How can we get back what people lost, or is that we just move forward?
Well, one of the ways we continue to do that is budgeting is about prioritizing, making sure we understand what our priorities are. And so we know that we got police and we got fire and we got the core services that we have to make sure that we continue to keep intact and keep in place, making sure our buses. I was on a bus this morning, rode down Dexter with the activists and looking at the homelessness that's at the Rosa Park Transit Center. We know we have to attack our core services to make sure they stay. But also, what we have to do is ensure that we are prioritizing the things that are important. And one of the ways that we prioritize those things is looking at how do we take care, how do we make sure that our current employees are, uh, number one, are paid fairly and comparable. But number two, how do we make sure that those that have done the work uh, receive their just pay and their just reward? And we may not be able to write the check all at one time, but to have somebody in that office that is a union member, because I did work at American Gear and Axle. I was a member of Local 235 before it shut down and before it closed down. And so having somebody on the other end of the table who know those pains and knows those ills, those are things that we would be able to accomplish.
Reverend, when people have jobs, sometimes they can't get to those jobs because our bus system is still, I mean, inadequate when you compare it to other cities.
Yes.
What can we do? What would you like to see done with our bus system to improve it?
Well, one of the things is we have to make sure, number one, that we need to retain our drivers by making sure that they are more comparable paid so that they're not being trained in the city and going to other suburban and regional neighborhoods because of compensation. The other thing we have to make sure that we continue to do a lot in this budget addresses that. It's a great start. I mean, they put money in the budget to do more with the buses. The buses have to be upgraded. Those buses have to be maintained. And so we got to do something about the equipment. We also got to do something about the drivers, comparable pay. And we got to do something about making sure that they're safe. But also we got to do something about the homelessness that is attached to that, that in many times is being overlooked. But it all starts with training and fairly compensating.
Well, I know your time is tight. Why should people vote for you?
Because when you look back on the 27 years at Triumph Church, the platform that I have been given, I used it to help lift an entire community. Whether you talk about the homes, whether you're talking about the education, whether you're talking about, making sure that they had digital devices during COVID, whether you're talking about partnering with the local grocer and making sure that our church is turned into human services and social services. I spent all of my life. That's why I'm amazed when the question of my Detroit commitment and loyalty comes into question. I spent all of my life using my platform to help Detroiters. I've been rocking with Detroiters for the last 27 years. I'm asking that as mayor of Detroit, that I'm entrusted with that position, and so that the citizens can give me a chance to rock with me so that I can continue to do what I've been doing, not just what some people are talking about, what they want to do, and they had the opportunity to do. I'm looking for an opportunity to do what I've been doing for the whole city, like I've done with the community.
Your last word, Allan.
I, you have how many parishioners in your?
We have for more than 40,000 families. It depends on, because we got multiple congregations in Flint. And so it just depends on what congregation you're talking about. But yeah, we got more than 40,000 families.
40,000 and families, not people. You're talking
not
family.
people, families.
And so let me ask you, you've got a church, you must have quite a few employees. How does your management skills there transfer to a mayoral job where you're running? It's a much bigger operation.
Yes, executive. And I think that's what gives me the ability to do it, because one, I'm a leader, but the other is I'm a builder. I know how to cipher and filter information and make decisions. I know how to hire competent people. I know how to surround myself with individuals who are able to get the job done by finding people who have done it and giving people an opportunity who can show you what they can get done. I know how to inspire hope. I know how to raise capital. I know how to do a budget and not just receive a budget and ask a question about the budget. I know how to make sure that we are recruiting, we're retaining, and we're training individuals. And I know how to deliver collaborative efforts, convening. The next mayor is going to have to make sure that they are a unifier, pulling together entire tables, business. The town still needs to be pro-business. It needs to be, but we need to be more inclusive with the table, not taking chairs away from the table, but adding to it and pulling unions, residents, block club presidents, all people to the table in order to make sure that we not only cast vision, communicate vision, but also convene a table where that vision is executed and carried out.
Okay. Hey, man, we're going to have you back on, Reverend Kinloch.
I'm looking forward to it. We got a lot to discuss and we got a lot to do. And so we're looking forward to it.
Okay. Reverend Solomon Kinloch, Triumph Church. I was there when you first showed up in Southwest Detroit, and you had 6 people or 7 people at your service, because the old folks said, we don't want this young guy. Listen, you did what you needed to do.
I appreciate it. And that's the same opportunity I'm doing now. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate you guys for the opportunity, and keep holding up the vanguard.
Okay, Reverend Solomon Kinloch, running for mayor, Triumph Church. Good luck.
Thank you. I appreciate you, gentlemen, tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. Allan, he got a lot of people liking, people pissed off, people whatever.
Do you want to read some of the comments here? We've got.
Yeah, why don't you read some of the comments? I'm illiterate.
Yeah, we got. Let's see here. Canada, let me go. I learned from the forum again. We need a debate. Day says, if you don't show up to hear the people, let the people hear you. He needs to show up to these forums. It's not smart. He's dodging, engaging with Detroiters, probably because he isn't from Detroit. That was
from Detroit. He just listen.
don't duck.
Go ahead.
Dave says don't duck forums because you can't duck the responsibilities of the city by attending. Why are you running for office? Queen Bee says he got that right. A lot of Ontarians south of London support Detroit teams over Toronto. London Day says we're tired of your rhetoric. Show us you actually know what you're talking about. That's what forums are for. Janice Richardson said, you have to realize that the city of Detroit residents, is that Adolph making that noise? Here, let me put it on. Hold on a second. Okay. Don't have to travel far with 8 body churches. I know you stated job training paying up to $35 per hour. You have to take on the house before that pastor. Okay. It goes on. Well, I'll read one more. G Money Hollywood, Pastor Kinloch. What do you really want to be? Why do you really want to be mayor? You're a full-time pastor. How are you going to be committed to 2 full-time positions without one suffering from the other? And we did. I think he addressed that. I think clearly. I mean, we know that it's a full-time job. I mean, there's no question about it. And so long as he's committed to that, I mean, as we say, we've seen other, like the senator from Georgia who does a sermon on Sundays, and I don't think anybody's objecting to that. But clearly, being the mayor of Detroit is more than a full-time job. It's a 24/7 job. I can't imagine how taxing that job is and the responsibilities. But I thought I'd like to, have more opportunities to talk to him about the issues. But I think, I think we need to ask all the candidates some tough questions, and they need to answer them the best they can. And I think we have to be sometimes careful about letting candidates talk too much in generalities about, I'm going to make the city great. I'm going to address poverty. We need to get to the next level of what that means and how that looks to the voters. Adolph, you're on mute. Can you unmute yourself? Or Teresa, can you unmute? You're on mute.
Okay, I'm off of mute, right?
Now you're out of mute.
Okay, you said it right. But listen, people come on, and about politicians and stuff. They don't want to be ambushed, and
Right.
and even when they come and they do what voters want them to do, voters are never satisfied. It's like listening to Prince when he said, "My mama never satisfied." Yeah, and no, they never satisfied because when you go into the lion's den, they find something. You should do this, you should do that. I thought him not showing up yesterday, it was good. He know what he was dealing with, and when you don't want to get to be at a shit show, because it was a shit show. Like, who would you vote for? Now, if I was running for mayor and somebody said, if you wasn't running for mayor, who would you vote for? I'm running for mayor. So I'm not even going to entertain that shit.
Right.
I'm not going to entertain it. Don't even ask me that.
One of the candidates, I don't think she was a candidate. There was a woman. Did you watch the second panel? There was a woman on there, and I'm not even sure what her name was. But I don't think she was a candidate for mayor. Or maybe she was, and I didn't realize it. But if she is, maybe she's a write-in candidate or something. But it was a little bit of a circus. you know, I understand what they were trying to do. They were trying to cut out all the just the speeches and the kind of the BS, but I don't know that.
But the bottom line is Donald Trump got elected president when he said, "I am not doing a debate. I'm not doing this. Kiss
Right.
my white ass. I don't give a fuck about y'all." And there he is. He's elected. Now, all of a sudden, oh, you know, the people like Kinloch or whoever else, we're gonna have Santil Jenkins on tomorrow, and I'm sure it's gonna be the same stuff. You know, she didn't do that, you know what? And she's gonna have to answer some of the tough questions because you got some questions to ask her about some of the stuff she had done after she left the city, which is legitimate. That you know what? Nobody's trying to ambush anybody.
I
And
thought she had a good answer to. She was asked, well, you know, Mary Sheffield's accused her of abandoning the city bankruptcy, and Santil answered that yesterday and said, "I left in 2014 when we were emerging." She said, "I stayed for the bankruptcy. We were emerging from the bankruptcy when I left, so the tough stuff was taken care of, and I wanted to, you know, move on to do something else." But I think she addressed that.
yeah,
There was another interesting question with Mary Sheffield. They were asking her, saying that she sits on the board of the Riverfront Conservancy. How come do you take responsibility? And she was basically like, you know, for all the stolen money. And she said, "I don't. It's basically, I was, you know, I think it was." She said,
she don't want anybody to start looking at. But anyway,
yeah.
let's take a break and come back, and we'll continue the conversation. Detroit in Black and White, our Friday edition with Allan Lengel. It's me and Allan Lengel.
All right.
Hi, I'm Eric Sabria, your Wayne County Treasurer. If you're living in a home of a deceased family member and you're facing property tax foreclosure, the probate process can be helpful to you. If you file a probate petition and notify our office, the foreclosure proceedings will be halted during the probate process. Contact us at 313-224-5990 or email us at taxinfo@waynecounty.com. We're here to help.
We're back.
So Eric is writing and saying that Danetta Simpson, her name. Oh, here we go. The woman's name is Danetta Simpson, and she is a writing candidate. You know, writing. I mean, Duggan pulled off against the odds. He was able to be a writing candidate.
Duggan had $1 million. Duggan had a brand. Duggan had a name.
Right.
It's like and I tell people when they talking about buying billboards and stuff, I said billboards don't vote. But if you Pepsi, Coca-Cola, Ford, Chrysler, whatever, they got a brand. You can do a billboard and people know who you are. But if we do a billboard, have a billboard here, a billboard there, they're like, who is that? And you know,
billboards are, you know, if you don't, particularly if you don't have a name, I mean, you get one or two billboards, which is going to cost you anywhere from $6,000 to $10,000. It's not going to have any impact. You know, you have to have a lot. If you had billboards everywhere in the city, if you had billboards on buses and all that stuff, you might be able to do something. But I mean, somebody like that, it's tough enough with the name brand candidates right now because of the crowded field. I think it's tough for people like Santil, you know, whether the polls are accurate or not. You know, people have, I know on the show, have dissed the polls, and some have been accurate, some not.
And I'm one of them that dissed the polls.
But candidates, if they have the money, they do their internal polling because they try to figure out where they stand and what they need to do, and they get feedback over whether their name is recognizable or whether they're likable or this or that. So they can be helpful in guiding, and they can be total bullshit. We've seen some polls that look, in 2016 the polls were awful with Donald Trump. Hillary Clinton was supposed to kill it, and she lost. And I think again this time, I don't think Trump. Well, the polls were all over the place with that, but yeah, I don't know. We'll see. But it's a crowded field, and some people, it's only two. It comes down to two people, and I mean, if I had to say, and Adolph, you may have a different opinion. I think the leaders, Mary Sheffield, the Reverend Kinloch, Chief Craig.
It's up in the air. People not feeling. Listen, I'm gonna tell you, women ain't feeling Mary.
Yeah.
This is up in the air, and I'm asked some of the candidates, why the fuck are you going to the Mackinac conference? They trying to raise some money. This shit has been done. You know what? It's been done already.
Mm-hmm.
That's a waste of fucking time. While they up in Mackinac partying and drinking and whatever the fuck they doing in that smell up there. I hate going up there because it stink. I'ma just tell you. And the horses, whatever. Right. But I would have my candidate down here, whether you're knocking on doors, whether you're doing whatever you're doing. Listen, this is people got to hustle on this campaign.
There's not a lot of time.
No, it's not. And next week is 2 months. 2 months left.
Yep.
And it's anybody's game. Anybody's game. They can win this. And you know what? I can live with Kinloch being mayor. I can live with Santil being mayor. I can live with Fred Duhall being mayor.
Mm-hmm.
I can live with them being mayor. So
it's tough. I mean, there are a few candidates that are just you can bet the house. They're just not, like Joel. He's not going to make it. If I were a betting person,
didn't we have him on?
Yeah, we did, and
he was scared of us. He was tripping out.
But I don't know about him. There's other candidates who have names, but it's going to be tough. It's a tough race.
Aaron Winston said is Duhall giving up his seat. Yeah. No, he's not. Yeah, he's giving up his seat.
Yeah, is he up for election?
Yeah.
This year. Okay.
Yeah, he's giving up his seat.
Okay, and then
Duhall is a good guy. I like him.
Mm-hmm. He's sharp.
In his time. Who knows?
Yeah. So tomorrow's show, we've got two candidates. We've got Santil Jenkins coming on, and then we've got James Harris Jr. From the fire department, who's running at large for city council. And
why don't you do the backstory on James Harris?
So James is risen through the fire department. His father was a cop. He's risen to the fire department. He's a chief of, I think, public relations, and
we had him on before.
He's been on. He's talking about fire safety and all that So he's a very nice guy, and Santil's a very likable person. I mean, I think she's got to step up her game if to break out there at some point. But I don't know. Mary, I think, has the most money, but I don't know where the money's going.
Sometimes money don't do shit. I remember when Freeman Hendricks had all the money. Mm-hmm. He kept about $100,000 or $200,000, whatever he kept. He said he's gonna spend it later after he got elected.
Right? How important do you think it is to have the backing of business the business community in
They
Detroit.
can't vote, but if they can hope. They can't vote, but they can hope, and they can make it interesting and shit. You know what? I'm gonna tell you what our guest brought to the table in this mayor's race. He got 40,000 families, and listen, and I said this when he got appointed pastor of Triumph Church. All the old folks, the longtime people said he's too young to run this church and stuff. Somebody saw something in him, and he had 6 people at a service. I took a candidate there.
Yeah.
He ain't never blinked since then. He done what he needed to do, and he done built this up from the ground. So don't underestimate him.
He's got the backing. He's got a built-in voter base.
And people and while other churches, you look at Perfection Church. They've been building a church for 20 fucking years and can't finish it because they don't have the people. They don't have the money. You look at some of these mega churches in Detroit, they don't have the folks to come in there. They become conference centers and stuff. They had to reinvent themselves to pay the light bill, the water bill, the gas bill, and all the other bills because they don't have the people that come there, So if you got a church that seats 3,000 people and you only getting 500 on a Sunday, that's a waste of fucking time, But he got, oh man, somebody wrote one of our viewers said, oh, most of his churches is outside Detroit. He got a big church right there on the boulevard. That holds a couple thousand people. He got a church over in Macomb County. He got a church over in Southfield. He got a church. Hey, listen, he's going where the folks are. Nobody says the Catholic Church left Detroit. They just got their headquarters still in Detroit. But the folks, all these big ass buildings that's empty, they can't tear them down, but they empty. How many people go to some of these cathedrals on Woodward on Sunday? What, 50 people, 100 people at the most? Yeah. So you can say whatever you want to say. You don't have to vote for Pastor Kinloch. You don't have to vote your conscience. Vote for who you want to vote for.
What do you? Day is said something about Chief Craig. Craig has a good heart, but he's just too old. What do you?
Donald Trump, 90 years old. So no, Craig ain't too old. Craig, listen, just say Craig is. You don't like his agenda, but he ain't too fucking old.
Yeah. All right. Yeah.
Okay, you get the last word. What's the point?
I'll say real quickly, and I was thinking of writing a column about this. Ed Martin, who was the D.C. U.S. Attorney, the interim, was not confirmed because he's so screwed up. Even Republicans would not confirm him as the U.S. Attorney. And so now he is ahead of pardons. And he is now saying, I want to take a look at 2 of the people who were convicted in the Whitmer kidnapping or serving prison time to see whether they should be pardoned. He says, we don't want to leave them behind like the January 6th people. I think it's...
But those people, didn't they get convicted on the state level?
I think that there were some on state and there were some
on the state level.
They were federal. There were a couple out of Grand Rapids, out of U.S.
Okay, well, to the victors goes the spoils, because these assholes do whatever the fuck they want to do because they in control right now. But
Yeah.
anyway, we're gonna come back tomorrow at McShane's, Michigan and Trumbull. We're gonna have Santil Jenkins, another mayoral candidate who I like. She's real smart. She was the city council president. Uh, people like her, business like her and stuff. But as I keep saying, this has been a quiet campaign, and nobody's doing what they need to do. Thanks everybody for watching us, and we're gonna have a lot of folks here tonight. And Teresa, thank you, and Allan, thank you, and I want to thank Reverend Solomon Kinloch. Thank you for coming on. I know you. Hey, you doing what you're doing.